Your Town Matters is funded by the Government of Canada through the Local Journalism Initiative and supported by Cactus Media, Canada's independent community television association.
Welcome to Your Town Matters. I'm Andrew Sutton. Today I'm joined by John Detorakis, the Mayor of St. George. Thanks for being here, John.
Thank you very much, Andrew. Always pleasure to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you.
So there's been some drama recently.
Drama?
Well, perhaps.
I would say developments, a lot of developments are happening, and we try to manage them as well as we can.
Okay.
But, yeah.
So obviously we should talk about the municipal restructuring.
I never thought you were going to ask about that.
No, you didn't.
Yes, well, we have not had it yet.
No.
So, and I'm a very positive person, and I'm still talking to, last week I spoke to the Deputy Minister, putting the case that our town meets the criteria of the white paper, and I was pleased to hear from him that they know that. However, the most that he could do is actually take, again, my case, that we meet the white paper and we don't need a fourth amalgamation to the minister.
Right.
And I'm still hoping that, I'm a positive person.
So just for clarity's sake,
Yes.
We'll say that in the white paper, the towns of St. George and the village of Blacks Harbour are to be amalgamated, and new elections would be held in February, I believe, of next year?
I think it's a bit earlier than that. I think it's November 2022.
Okay, that's much earlier.
Yes.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah.
Which is a pretty significant change for both the town of St. George as well as Blacks Harbour.
Well, let's start by saying that effective the day that this may happen, and I'm hoping that it will not happen,
Mm-hmm.
the elected councils and mayors of Blacks Harbour and St. George are becoming trustees in dissolution.
Mm.
We got elected with a vision, plans. There were debates before the election about what we want to see forward as long-term plans. Like we had projects like the Day Adventure Center that we had to decide what to do with it, and we're talking about how we can promote growth in our town, balanced growth, not only in terms of the aquaculture, but also bringing more people from Ontario and the West here. Mm-hmm. So we're working on some longer term plans, and we are still working on some longer term plans. We are, we have been lucky the last year that we have been leading growth in Charlotte County. By a large margin, like 67%, I think, of overall construction, new permits came from St. George.
Right.
So we're fortunate on that one, and we are still trying to cement this growth. Mm-hmm. We are talking to some developers who are going to put a new subdivision, a large subdivision of 30 plus houses in St. George. There is a proposal out for building a new apartment building for low income people. So these are things that we have done, and we try to cement them, although all these things are happening around us.
Okay.
However, a lot of longer, beyond cementing what we try to achieve, we don't have any opportunity, if the thing is voted, to actually start thinking about our long-term future as a town of St. George, a town that has been incorporated in 1896, and if you can at some point, I want you to actually put that thing up in the certificate of the incorporation of the town of St. George, dating back to 1896. So, we stopped being the council and the mayor and we're becoming a trustees in dissolution, effective that. And I understand there's going to be some sort of a official who will be appointed from the minister who will manage or help us manage the transition
Okay.
as we get to the.
Did you? Who told you that there would be an official?
Oh, that is public. That is public.
Okay.
Public information that there will be I think they call them mediator.
Okay, mediator. Yeah.
Mediator is more of a facilitator, but effectively there is what is going to happen is known. The question is how it can happen without less pain or with less pain.
How to minimize pain. I gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you've been quite vocal about the fact that you're not entirely pleased about this amalgamation. Could you just sort of outline the issues that you have with the white paper as it exists now and as it now exists as legislation?
Well, I want to start by the fact that as St. George, as the town of St. George, as mayor and council of St. George, we took municipal reform very seriously. We are the only municipality in Charlotte County and perhaps the only municipality in New Brunswick of our size that actually held a public hearing to identify what are our issues with regards to municipal reform. Because reform is a positive word. It implies a change for improvement. And we wanted to have a change for improvement. So back in July, we had a public hearing and we sent to the minister, through our MLA, our recommendations about what that reform should be for a town of our nature and size. And it included positive things like, for example, recognizing that we have ties with a certain LST, the St. George LST, going back 200 years or more. And it will be a positive thing if you bring these two together. And that will increase our size and our viability and everything. We identify the need that we need less regional service commission, not more. We ask that we retain the ability and the authority to pull out of regional service commission mandates which they don't fit well with our local town, our community. We ask for other things such as the famous or infamous creep of our businesses to the edge of the town. And we said that maybe our town should recognize that St. George starts at Tim Hortons, not at the Catholic Church or post office. We start over there. So we actually took all this input from the public hearing and we sent them to the minister. The minister acknowledged them. He actually sent a positive feedback back that he felt that kind of he learned something from what we said when we talk about a long connection with the St. George LSD.
Right.
And that was it. So we spent like 9 months of generalities with no specific essentially proposals. And all of a sudden, a white paper comes out, which we meet. So one could say that we should have been okay, but we are not okay. And there is no opportunity to even say what we are having now is not a reform, because reform is a positive word. This is a deformation, a forced deformation. And let's call it for what it is. And if you go around to our residents, yesterday I was at a meeting with the other mayors and LST representatives that was held under the Regional Service Commission umbrella. There wasn't a single person in there that said, we are happy with what's happening. So we are very unhappy about what is happening, and we have a decision to make. I mean, obviously we have to try to do the best for our communities, but fundamentally we are residents and representatives in a democratic society. And there will be a time to vote. And at that time we have to decide if we believe that we need to reform the deformation or we have to actually go ahead with it.
Right.
So this is where we are. So
in the white paper, the role of the regional service commissions is expanded somewhat, though
not somewhat.
It's unclear exactly what that means.
Well, go ahead.
So if you could just sort of outline to me what it is in the letter that you sent to the minister, some of the services that the Regional Service Commission provides that you feel aren't appropriate for St. George.
First of all, the intent to expand the role of the Service Commission was communicated earlier, even from the Green Paper.
Yeah.
So we knew that they were about to expand the role and the bureaucracy and the cost that we're going to be paying as a result of that bigger local structure, which is going to call an improved and augmented Service Commission. Because Service Commission were created originally to manage waste of our region. I mean, they run the waste management facility very good. They are doing an excellent job. I mean, I have no problem with the management and the way that this commission is run. But they had a very focused mandate. Now there is a creep to add more bureaucracy. And some of these things were like having the Regional Service Commissioner engaged in our recreation. Mm-hmm. Like we're going to have a recreation czar who's going to be deciding what kind of recreation we need, how many recreation coordinators we need, and all this costs money. Okay, so when I listen to my community, they never ask for that mandate to exist in the Regional Service Commission. There is now a new thought about giving to the Regional Service Commission mandate on matters of tourism. I mean, we have tried to actually build some tourism promotion. We have a levy on our motels. So we have tried to actually have a St. George focused tourist promotion that will serve St. George interests. Now this is going to go somewhere else. And the question is, how much say we're going to have on that? How much weight we're going to have on that? Mm-hmm. There are other things like adding responsibilities to the Service Commission about economic development. Why that? I mean, why another layer of bureaucracy? Every person who is going to have an office there doing that is going to need to get paid. And that thing is going to be coming from the pockets of the local community. Mm-hmm. So I'm very concerned about that. So we said to the minister at that time that we want, as St. George, to have the option of pulling out of one of these new additional mandates to the Service Commission and keep it in St. George. Mm-hmm. St. Andrews has already done that with regards to the planning function. When it comes to rezoning, St. Andrews said, maybe we need to actually think about what St. Andrews wants and don't pharma this responsibility out. Hmm. So there were already some, pushback on expanding the role. In St. George, we said maybe we should retain that ability, and we asked the minister to give us that option. I have not seen that, and it's not in the paper.
So planning and recreation would be the main issues that you have. Planning
and recreation, tourism, economic development.
Right.
I even start hearing things like somehow matters of health, primary health, maybe like one that the Regional Commission may have to actually do. And these are all farming out liabilities and responsibilities of the province to local property owners through their property tax. Right. So there is a need to actually, we said it, we want to have the ability to say no, but how much we were heard, the voters can decide.
Well, it seems like the legislature will decide pretty shortly here, actually, because they are voting on the bill, I think, as it stands, which is essentially the white paper. So going forward, assuming that legislation passes, what then is your role in this? What do you feel you as the mayor of St. George can do with a situation that you feel is untenable and that the town doesn't actually want?
Well, listen, there are some transitional issues which you have a responsibility as a trustees in dissolution to actually take care of our mandate. And this can be essentially, right now, for example, we are discussing an incentive bylaw to attract private investment for housing. Okay, that would require us to actually make commitments as a town that's going to go beyond November of 2022. Do have the legal right to do it?
Right.
Or we are exceeding our authority as trustees in dissolution.
I see.
So those are things that are important that we will still fight for. Okay, and that's part of, but fundamentally, as we move towards November 22, and as voters and residents start making up their mind on whether or not this is a reform or a deformity. That's a very important concept that we all have a responsibility to stand up and make a decision. Is that a reform for improvement or a deformity for liability and trouble? And that should be something that we all, elected representatives, as we move forward, will have to stand up and take a position.
That's a very good soundbite, but I think that it can be both.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We were the first to say a reform is needed. There were things that we believe, for example, the way that the way that our businesses leaked out on the boundary of the town, and they have like large corporate players operating at the border of the town, like Tim Hortons or Subway, or and not being part of our corporate citizens as a town. It was a thing that we want to see in the reform, and we proposed it. Okay, but there can be positive things out of it, yes. But there are also some big differences. Like we have St. George and Black's Harbor, two incorporated entities that they are functioning. They have staff, they have equipment, they have liabilities, they have plans for the future. They don't have a common boundary. We don't have a geographical boundary, and we're about 20-25 minutes if you drive properly to go from St. George to Black's Harbor. Yeah. We don't have any common geographical boundary. And all of a sudden they say, oh, it's good for you. And the most solid argument that comes out of it, go Mariners. Go Mariners. That is cheesecake. It's not an argument. That is pure cheesecake. Okay. There is a Charlotte County. I was all for a Charlotte County council. Because we have that highway one that connects us all, and I was all for a Charlotte County reformation, like going back to an original model with every town or village or community having some sort of a say in a Charlotte County wide council. That did not even was given any consideration.
Well, I think you raised some pretty good points. St. George and Black's Harbor are not close to each other. They don't share, the same utilities. I imagine it would be two different wastewater treatments.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah. So they are two separate communities. I suppose we'll see how it plays out, but maybe we'll change directions for the remainder of the show. So. You have been mayor now for 6 months?
Yes, close to that. Yeah, I think yeah.
Yeah. And it is the end of the year.
Yes.
I mean, you probably would have been mayor for longer if we didn't have the pandemic, which delayed things. But maybe we can look back on the 6 months now and give your impressions. This is your first time in local government, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Is it what you expected it to be?
Well, there has been a learning curve. There's no question about that. But there were a lot of things which I believe we accomplished as a council, as a new council. A change in culture, first of all, a change in culture of how municipal business are to be conducted. We went through a quiet council who was coming out of a closed chamber of councillors, and they were saying resolution X, all in favor, aye. Next, resolution B, all in favor, aye, to an open democracy type of operation. Our council meetings and our hearings are lively affairs. I mean, we are voicing our disagreements and we are debating them. And some people were uncomfortable about that. They were uncomfortable about council meetings running 2 hours. Because, it's easy to say, okay, council resolution 35, all in favor, aye. Next. That's one. And no one knew what is going on. There were rezonings happening in St. George that no one had the chance if his property was known. I mean, there was no. Now we move to a different thing. Even from things like we dealt with difficult questions. Like, for example, should we have a library, a proper library? Should we actually have a community center that is not a daycare facility, but is open for any kind of function of the community? These are tough questions. I mean, because there are established interests, there were established precedents, and there were a lot of community engagement in these questions. But we did not put it under the carpet. We put it out and we debated it. And we had the people tell us in our face, you are doing the wrong thing, or you are doing the right thing. Yeah. Okay? And at the end, each one of us took a responsibility. Last meeting, we spent like maybe 20 minutes discussing it. The town should spend $5,000 to have an equipment to measure speed, to control speeding, excessive speeding. And there were legitimate concerns put by many councillors. And at the end, when we voted, the mayor had to break essentially the split vote. I mean, and I think that's something that I'm really proud of. The fact that we are not going there to just spend half an hour and get out. We are going there to put our positions, our principles out on the table in a public way, and at the end have the people to say, these guys are doing a lousy job or these guys are doing a good job. And that's an accomplishment. So that, I put that thing high on my list of accomplishments. Beyond that, I was surprised on the transition, how we ended up as a new council with a lot of looking around our shoulder what's going on, to a council that works together. The latest example was how we came together recently when we were working about Christmas and setting up something for the kids, and making a little movie. Don't laugh. I think
it was a good movie.
I take big pride of that because we all came together. We actually got a volunteer to actually play Olaf, and we put out something and the community loved it. So I'm really proud how that council that started as a group of disconnected individuals who never met each other. I did not know any of the councillors. I knew Councillor Detorakis because I have met her several times. But I did not know the other councillors at all. I mean, okay, so I'm really proud of the transition, how we ended up from a disconnected council to a council that can work together and do something good. So that's my expectations of how we got there.
Okay. So what have you found most surprising or unexpected about being mayor?
Well, it will sound like repeating the same things, but one thing that surprised me is the extent to which the provincial government is offloading responsibilities to the local folk. And it started with back in June. We had a concerned parent who wrote to me about the fact that St. George Elementary is in such location that a lot of kids are running out of the school to go across the mall. And it's a heavy traffic road, and they were concerned that, the situation as the road and the crossing and there are no lights is such that it's a dangerous situation for the children. So I wrote to the minister and I said, particularly when during recesses or during when the school ends, there should be someone in the school who will be around the frontage of the street controlling what's happening with these children. That they will not bolt inside the car and have. And he said, oh, that's a municipal responsibility. Somehow the kid, when it crosses the yard, becomes the responsibility of the town. I thought that it should have been the responsibility of the school to actually have some attendant to make sure that when recess happens or when the school ends, somehow this does not happen, that guides children or stops the traffic, for example, if needs. But I thought that was a school function, okay? And the minister said, Minister Curry, he said, no, this is the responsibility of the town. But going forward, I just see more and more of these things. Primary health care is supposed to be a responsibility of the province. We are paying for the clinic that houses the only remaining physician. We are paying the cost of the clinic. I mean, if there is a need to actually have a clinic, a building paid by the taxpayer to be able to afford primary health care, that should be the responsibility of the province, not the St. George taxpayer. But we pay for that. as we go forward, I see more and more of that. I mean, we now have concerned parents coming to us and saying, you know, can you help us rebuild the playground of the elementary school? Mm-hmm. And we actually, I'm going to just write a check next week to help them. But let's stop for a moment. The responsibility of the school and what's happening in that school is the responsibility of the province. Some people say, oh, that was the way that was happening all the time. Well, the trend is that in 5 years, we're going to have fundraisings for getting chalk, because maybe the chalk and the blackboards, they can be passed on to the municipality, you know, and we're going to do the rest. Mm-hmm. So there is that continuous offloading. And it's important to actually say, this is offloading. This is not a municipal responsibility. This is a provincial responsibility. We pay it through our provincial taxes.
Right. Coming into January, what will be your New Year's resolution?
Well, but my New Year's resolution is driven by a personal interest, and that is, I, as many other people, as the majority of the people in my community, do not have access to a physician. And you cannot scream loud enough that this is a crisis. We don't need another committee. We don't need another designer of a master plan. We have to recognize that for the last 5 years, this government stayed behind 5% each year on what other provinces were paying in keeping up primary health care. So we have an accumulated deficit of keeping up of 25%. And now we are paying for that in suffering. Mm-hmm. My doctor left St. George a week ago, and now he is in Quispamsis, okay? I need to actually spend 2 hours on the road and $30 in gas to go and get him. And I can afford $30 to actually go. 2 hours, I'm stressed, but you know, I still have to actually, the community is in crisis with regards to primary health care. So, you know, I'm a part of a regional service commission who actually tries to echo and channel this concern. But fundamentally, it's coming to the point that we may have to look at solutions like getting 4 buses full with residents who are going to drive up to the Legislative Assembly and say, enough. Okay? So, you know, it may sound like extreme and radical, but we are getting there. I mean, it's a very serious problem with primary health care, access to physicians, and we don't need another committee.
I saw recently that the province had announced the construction of a new prison for $32 million.
Don't go there. Mm-hmm. Don't go there, please. I mean, when it comes to priorities, you know, I just, you know, I do a bit of a personal battle with respect to these initiatives, you know, and I often ask the question: is the municipal reform the priority now, in the middle of a crisis of COVID and healthcare and all that? And so now is prisons the next priority?
Apparently.
Okay, I mean, yeah.
For the Minister of Justice it is.
You have to talk to my MLA for that.
Okay, good. All right, well, thank you for being here, John. My guest today has been John Detorakis, the Mayor of St. George, and you've been watching Your Town Matters. Thanks for joining us.